I've got four things to show you as problems that we've come across, and so I'll just check which. So the first problem I've got is glass in elevations. So the idea of this is that here I've got a balcony. It's a problem we came across quite recently on several projects. We've got a balcony, we've got glazing on the balcony edge there, and what we'd like to do is in elevation see through that glazing to see the stuff behind it. Now, as you know, in 3D views like this, you can see straight through that transparent glazing. But if you go to any orthographic view, like an elevation view, then you can't see the. You can see it if you do a 3D view like that. So you can see straight through those things, but in elevation you can't see that. Now then, let's go for a bit of the old project browser so I can see what I'm doing. So here we go in south elevation. What I've got is a series of pieces of glass, but they're not transparent. I can't see through them. I can't see what's going on behind. And that's just by default. That's, I guess, so that you can't see through windows into your building, but in some circumstances, like a balcony, you might want to see this stuff on the balcony. There's several different cases, and I've put 3 different options up here. This one is just standard elements. That's a glass wall. It's a standard basic wall made out of glass, so in 3D you can see straight through it. In this view, it's not transparent. You could obviously right-click the things and override the graphics in the view by element or whatever and make them transparent. That's an option. In this case, what I've done is, in this view, I've made up a filter, glass walls here, and I'm selecting these glass walls by family type name, by the wall type name. You could select by anything that you fancy selecting by, and then just use that transparency override here to make them transparent. So all the walls of this type will be transparent in this elevation. That works fine for simple elements, but for more complicated things like railings, like this railing here, I've used that. In fact, on this one I've made this railing overridden by element just to see how that works. But the problem with it is, because it's a railing and it's all one thing, you can see that you can not only see through the glass, you can also see straight through the rail as well, which, if you've got more complex, if you've got balusters in there, visually it doesn't look good on the elevations. So that doesn't quite work. The only fix we've found for balustrades, because you can't get at the sub-elements very easily, is to place 2 different balustrades here. So I've got 2 railing elements, one producing the solid things, one producing the glazed things. It's a real kludge, but it's the way we use in this case. And you can see here that the glass is transparent, but the rail is opaque. Finally, we've got this one over here, which is this is made out of curtain wall. Now, we're using curtain wall for balustrades. Some people do, but again, because it's a curtain wall panel, it's a complex element. You can't just use a filter to select the curtain wall panel and make bits of it transparent. If I want it to have a transparent middle and an opaque surround, in this case what I've done is nest in a shared generic model subcomponent, and then I can use the filter to select that subcomponent. So I can individually, I can tab through and select the generic model that's stuck inside that that curtain wall panel, or I can do that by filter. So that's a couple of options. So if I do the quick look at the filters in here, you can see what I'm selecting is the wall for the first one. I'm selecting the railing to make the glass part of the pure glass railing go transparent, and then I've got a filter here selecting the shared generic model that's a subcomponent of the curtain wall panel, and again make that transparent. So different options. I don't think that's great that you have to do so much jumping about to make things happen, but these are the workarounds we found. The idea of this problem solved session is that we put some problems up on the screen, and over the break you've got a sheet with a list of problems on, and if you've got better ideas or different ideas about how we could solve the problems, then you can put those on the list, hand them in after the break, and then we'll read them out after the break in a matching session after the break. If you want to come up, there's a place where you can say I'd like to come up and show off your best ideas. If you just want us to present, then just say you don't want to come up and we'll present for you. Okay, so this is participative, so we're presenting our best ideas, but you know, there's only a few of us, there's lots of you probably have better ideas, you've tried different things or whatever. So that's the idea of that. So now, let's close that down. Okay. So now, second one was, again, it's a bit of a common one, curved curtain wall panels. So you probably know that if you take a standard curtain wall that's curved, so it's got a curved baseline, I divided it using curtain grids, and when you put standard system panels on there, they're all flat, so you get a faceted curtain wall, and that might be just what you want. We do at Chapman Taylor, we do quite a bit of retail, where they like to have nice curved glass windows, so you can see what's going on inside. So we had to find solutions to get curved glass easily. And I've got 3 different options. You can see just incidentally here, this one, when you put mullions onto this curved curtain wall, the mullions come in faceted as well. These are standard mullions. That's normal behaviour. The first and simplest workaround we found was if instead of using a basic instead of using a standard basic curtain wall panel, if instead when you select the panel you can choose in the type selector, you can choose to put a basic wall in there, not a curtain panel. Let me just get the properties box up so I can do that. Oh gosh. Right. So here in type selector you can see what I've chosen is, rather than choosing the system panel from down here, glazed system panel or whatever, which is the flat one, always comes in flat, I've chosen instead to go for this 25 concept glass wall, which is just the definition of that is just a standard basic wall. It's made out of glass and it's 25mm thick. It's a kludge because it's a wall. You do get, as you probably know, you get to choose whether it's categorized as a panel or as a wall just down here. So if you embed a basic wall in a curtain wall, it can be a panel or a wall, and that influences how it filters, how you see it in Navisworks and so on. It's a really simple solution. And the great thing about it is that this thing here, I've not made it the right shape, but it's a mullion. It's actually a wall sweep, a standard wall sweep, so just made using architecture, wall sweep, and these things will place directly onto the surface of these walls because they are walls. So if you get the right profile, you can get a mullion that will hang on the face of the curved wall like that. Hello.
How does that interact with the straight bits of curtain wall?
Not very nicely, I don't think. Walls, yeah, wall sweeps have been in the product for a long time, haven't they? And they haven't changed a lot since then, so they're pretty inflexible, I guess. It is, you know, okay. Okay, so the third option I've got for you here, and you may have some better ideas, is you can make a custom curtain wall panel. This is one we made for a project. This is actually a glass reinforced concrete spandrel panel with 2 steps and some stuff behind, and we needed them to be curved. You'll see these in Trinity Leeds Shopping Centre if you ever go across to Leeds. They've got these nice curved spandrel panels. And this is just a curtain wall panel which has in it, it's got a sweep based on a profile, and the sweep is radial, so it's a curved sweep, and you can define the radius. So in the properties, of the panel, you've got a radius parameter here that will flex that. So as long as you make the radius of the panels match the radius of your base curtain wall, then you'll get a panel that works. Obviously, if you need to, not obviously, this wall one automatically curves to the right shape. This curtain panel one, you've got to set the curtain panel the right shape. Okay, moving on. This one here, this is based on a piece of work that Zach Cron put on his builds blog. It's more sophisticated than the other ones. It's actually a generic model, adaptive, 6-point I think, that is based on a mass. So if a switch mass is on, then you can see what I've had to do for this is build a little mass, and I've stuck a divided surface on the front of it, and then each of these little adaptive components sticks on the front of that, and because it's made to be seamless, it curves nicely to the shape of the curved thing. It's obviously, it will fit on a multi-curved surface. It will fit easily onto this. I happen to have one of these handy, so I could demonstrate it quite easily. But actually, setting that little family up in the first place, there's a bit. You don't do it in 5 minutes. Shall I put it like that? But Zach has a really good how to make a seamless system panel, seamless adaptive panel walkthrough on his blog. So if you need to do that kind of thing, it's a great tutorial. Okay. Any questions on those? Has anybody got any great ideas they're going to come up with?
Can you put all the grids?
On this one? Yeah, because the grids here is, now I don't know about doing it live, but this thing here is, so this is an in place. So if I get hold of that, I should see somewhere over here, modify mass, edit in place, and then I can get hold of the divided surface on the front. It's a repeater to make it easy. You've got a divided surface on the front, so in theory, if I change the number here, for example, then let's have a see. Does that do the trick? Yeah, so phew. That kind of thing. Or obviously, if you want to do, which I'll show, I think one of my tips tonight is about using intersects to divide a surface. So if you want a more complex divided surface, then you can do that kind of thing as well. So it just depends, it's obviously that's a bit more tricky, shall we say, than go on, discard the changes. That's a bit more tricky than just this one over here. But it, for the right circumstance, it's quite nice. Okay, let's close that. No, let's not do that. Right, and finally in Revit, I've got this mullion cutters. Now, I kind of put this last because I built this in 2014, Revit 2014, and it worked fine for the project we had in 2014. I tested some of this earlier on today, and Revit really didn't like it. It still works fine if you're using Revit 2014, but if you're in something else, then maybe it's going to start not working, because it's not really what you should be doing. But okay, so the situation was we had a nice kind of greenhouse effect where we had mullions at the front of the greenhouse and mullions across the roof. And if you have, if you have walls that join at a point, curtain walls that join at a point, the mullions will nicely join around seamlessly, no matter what the profile is. If you have a sloped glazing roof, which is curtain wall, and a curtain wall front, and you join them together nicely, and you put mullions on them, they don't join. So you can see here, that's the effect. You get this mullion here, and it's just stuffed right through the other mullion, which is not what you want. Just not what you want. And because mullions are very, because of the way mullions are, you can't edit them. You can't go in and cut them. You can't do anything much with them. You can't put an in-place in there that will cut them with a void. Like with a wall, you can make an in-place wall void and cut the wall. You can't do that with mullions. But we did find a trick where you can cut, as I've done here, you can cut one solid with another, and you can cut a mullion with a solid family. Not with a void family, with a solid family. And so, what we did was make, it's a real kludge, but it's a workaround, and if somebody's got a better idea, that's great. What I've got is, down here in families, slightly dodgily named, but I've got this mullion cutter here, which has a type property of visible. And if I just try and type properties, if I switch it on, then you can see that what I've got for this particular one was, I've got two things here. They're a little semicircular extrusion cutting along there. It's actually an adaptive component, so I can place it easily. But the main thing is that you've got a nice component which has a cutting face on it, and it covers the size of the mullion. So it's going to encompass all the bit of this one. Is going to cut the top off this mullion, and the back radius of it is going to encompass the back point of the mullion there. So it's going to cut that on a nice mitre. That's the idea. And in 2014 this worked perfectly. We made a couple of different shapes of this. When I tried this in 2015 earlier on today, it just said, when I tried to make the solid go invisible again, it said, the solid's invisible, I'm not going to cut anymore. Then I had to think, and I retried it, and if everybody crosses their fingers, then it'll work. So let's have a go. So you do, if there weren't so many things here that I couldn't see what I'm trying to see. Modify. Okay, good. So we'll do cut. So it's a cut. We'll do select this mullion here, and we'll do. I think the next step is to select this one here, isn't it? And you can see it's just cut the top off that. And then, so that's okay. And then we'll do that again. So we'll modify, cut. I'm not sure how Rob managed with so many tabs on his ribbon there. So I'm going to cut this horizontal one with this cutting element there. So, and that's great, apart from I've got this big orange thing in the way. And I guess even now you could filter it out, but you'd have to filter it out in every view, which would be a pain. So the idea is then that we can take this mullion cutter here and do its type properties there, switch off this visibility, which is just a visibility parameter on those solids that are inside that family, and say OK, and fingers crossed, and there you go, boom. Oh, relieved. Right, so I've got some nice mitered mullions. Best of luck with that. I don't even know if you can make that work in it, because maybe it just works and it had a glitch. Who knows? Right. Over here I've got this one, which is a rectangular cutter, but I'm not going to demonstrate that because I think that's the one that broke earlier on today. Okay, so I'll do one more and then any questions on that bit, I think. So now, yes, got it. There, right. Oh, you can put that up on the screen. How about that? There, right. So, Andrew and Rob did the presentation on that particular app that does room data sheets, but several other people came up with room data sheets as a problem and how to solve it. We've experienced different ways of doing it, and so I thought we could list the different ways that I know of, and you could come back with the best ways you've found of doing room data sheets. These are the different categories of thing, I thought. Well, so you've got, if you weren't doing anything too complicated, you could make some schedules and stick them on sheets. Could be a pain. You could do it with Dynamo maybe. You can take a room tag and make it in the shape of the room data sheet, and that's the kind of solution that Andrew's got there. I've done that manually, and it's a pain. You've got a big plan, you put the tags on it that are in the shape of your room data sheets, you switch off everything but tags and rooms, you make dependent views of all the rooms. It's a bit tedious. Okay. You could probably use some combination of Revit, Excel, AutoCAD to get the data shifted about. You could use some third-party software. There's some great software out there for doing just this thing if you've got a budget for it. And there's obviously some software that's not got such a big budget. But, okay, so room data sheets. It would be nice if there was something built into Revit that just did it, but there isn't. How are we doing it? Okay. That's my 4. Kevin's got a couple, and we've got another one. Okay. Yeah? Is it Gabor next? Or is it you next?
I can go now.
Okay, you go now. I'll just do escape on that. There you go. You good?
Maybe, maybe not.
Maybe. I'll switch myself off so I don't keep talking.
Okay.
You're on. Oh, that's the wrong thing. Make sure they're all.
Right, so the first one I'll cover today is one that somebody else submitted regarding project browser organization. So that, yeah, just at the back there. Okay, so the question for this one, and this one might take a second to open. Not do that. Okay, so the question for this one was how to organize your views and sheets within projects. Lots of companies have their own ways of doing this. If you're working on projects that have say 30, 40 views, then it's not too bad, but if you're working on projects where you've got 4,000 or 5,000, then it becomes a bit of an issue. So this is the way that we have ours set up at Shepherd Robson. I'll just explain. So essentially the problem is, how do we organise all our views here instead so that it doesn't look like something like this, which might just be the default out of the box stuff. The way we've set this up is we use a series of shared parameters, and essentially the same process works for the sheets as well. So you create a, sorry I can't see that on the screen. We have a couple of shared parameters here, or in this case there's 3. One called subset, one called subset subset, and the other one called subset subset subset. So yeah, don't ask me, I never named them that. But essentially it's really easy to create your own kind of structure. You can go into manage, project parameters, create your new view parameter, which will be text based. You do that through there, and then click on the top level of the view structure. Sorry, right click that and go to browser organization. You can also access it through views and then user interface here, browser organization there. And then this is where you create new or modify the existing ones. So let's just look at this, and it works in a similar way to your schedules, that sort of thing. So under grouping and sorting, you can choose to group based on certain parameters. So here you can see the shared parameters that we've created and added. So we're saying group by the subset parameter and then by the subset subset. So that essentially means every one, and these are grayed out at the moment because we have view templates applied to them. So let's just turn off the view template for this particular view. And then you should be able to see that we can change this to something else. there you go, you can see that straight away it gives you full flexibility, this method, because it's all text based. Obviously the full flexibility is also its potential downfall as well, because if people are typing stuff in, then there can be inherent spelling mistakes, that sort of thing. But one of the potentially good things is that it does actually pre-populate with the list that things that you've already typed in, so you can just pick something from a list if you're dealing with relatively small numbers. So the way we like to set ours up this particular way is having a top level where we have the sheet or the view classification, and then we have like subcategories based on the type of view that's associated to. That may not be appropriate for all instances or practices. Perhaps you only want one particular level. It's quite easy to create additional ones like I showed earlier on. All you do is just modify these, or you can add additional levels. We take that off there, and then those are all grouped together. I'm not going to go through the sheets because it's the same process, but in an additional, what you can also do, I've created a second one here. Instead of using the share parameters for all of it, I'm actually using the view type, which is also another good way of doing it. So we have the same top level, and then the level below. So each one of these views is a particular view type. These you can predefine, you can create new ones, and as you change these, it groups it based on that. So depending on how your internal structures work, whether I recommend using view types, to be honest, because you can control view templates through those when you're creating these particular views. Similar sort of thing for sheets as well, like I said. The only other solution I would say to this as well, it's also adding a parameter as well, but it would be like a yes/no parameter. So you could have something saying, is it part of a particular package or something like that? Then that could be, I suppose, one way of doing it. Also, sorry, one final thing on this one is this not on sheet. This is quite a useful one. I've seen organizations use this using the filtering part of the browser organization. This looks for the sheet name or the sheet number parameter. It doesn't matter which one you use, and then says, is this equal to none? If it is equal to none, then it means that it's not currently been placed on a drawing sheet, and then only shows those. So that's actually quite a good way to ensure that you're not working on views that are already on drawing sheets.
Does that work on schedules? I can't get this,
No.
subdivide them up.
No, as far as I'm aware, there is no. I suppose that's a problem that we can pose to the group if anybody knows an efficient way to organise schedules. The only thing I know is just number them, which isn't a particularly great way of doing it, but it's at least it groups them together. So if you're doing a particular package, then like schedule 01 or something like that. Okay, that's a problem. Okay, so the next one is regarding view depths. So, or creating the appearance of depth in your elevations. Okay, so we have a lovely model here that I just knocked up on the train on the way up, and essentially what we're trying to do here is exactly what you can see. We're trying to give the appearance of depth within our model. This could be whatever you want. I suppose it could be multiple buildings, it could be one big building that has different wings that you want to control the kind of visibility. Now I've created two models here to demonstrate multiple solutions. The first solution is if you're not using a work shared model, and that using that particular instance, these are all masses, you can select each one of these particular masses in a row. Perhaps for your building this might be an entire wing, so you select all the facade elements. You could use filters potentially, and then go into the visibility overrides for that particular object, and then add change the projection lines to something a little bit thinner. This method's great. This method is okay if you, like say, you're working in non-work shared projects, and also if your geometry is relatively simple, and you're not doing a kind of coloured view. If you're doing something like that, then obviously the fills, the shading on the objects and the shadows, for example, would all still appear quite heavy, and you just have your projection lines. So there's a bit of a drawback on that one. So here I've just done 3 separate different gradings. It might not particularly come up, but there is one for that one as well. So that works okay if you're working within a non-work shared project or a standalone project. But if you're working across a link file, then you don't have the ability to select the individual objects like this, and obviously that's where the second issue comes in. So just bear in mind for this particular one that we've got this elevation here, and I've just called this host elevation, so I'll come back to that a little bit further down the line. Okay, so if you're working on work shared projects, you've got multiple, perhaps this is your site model and you've got multiple buildings and you want to be able to control the depths. We've got 2 options in this particular scenario. Again, we've got, just turn on massing. The first particular one is to go through the same process that we did before, go into the original model and then select the elements that you want to be light, do that in there, do the overrides. And then in the linked model, or this model that has it linked back in, using under your visibility and graphics, under your Revit links, so this is this particular model, and then under linked views for this particular model, I can select that elevation that I created in the original geometry model. And what that will then do, just show you that one again in the background, you see it's I call it. It will bring through all the overrides that we've applied within that particular view. Link views are good for annotation as well. If you want to annotate within that particular model and then link it into another one, then it also works as well. So that works, but that potentially becomes quite problematic if you've got loads of links, because you have to create link views in every single model, and you end up with elevations within those models as well. So this is our second solution. I'll switch to a 3D view, demonstrate this. Okay, so what we've actually come up with for this particular option is using, and we've used design options to control the visibility of it. We've actually modeled there we go. I've actually modelled a series of these, in this case it's masses. These essentially represent panes of glass, or potentially whatever you want to call them. But the key thing is they don't have the depth is irrelevant. It's essentially a multiplier that's the key thing to this. And these are actually masses. These could be, you could do them using generic models. The category is irrelevant, providing that the object has a transparency, because this is using the default mass material. This is the default material in this particular template already has this transparency applied to it. So just switching to this elevation, once you have those all set up, and basically you look in plan, put them in position, and then within here we're just using turn on, I'll talk about the design options in a second, turn on the visibility of the south elevation, and then you basically make sure that the shape is larger than the view that you're looking at, and this gives you full control very quickly of the transparency across the entire model, so you don't have to worry about controlling those individual links. And if I kind of, let's turn on selecting faces, or if I pull this up a little bit further, I think that's actually the top of it. Yeah, sorry, yep. Shows how often I do modelling these days. Yeah, so there you go. You can see these. Just make sure that it's outside the line of it, and then turn off the visibility of my crop region. So there you go. Quick way to control it. So what I ended up doing in this particular instance, I decided that I wanted to use design options, and then set up a design option for each elevation, and that allows you to control the visibility of those particular panes. By default, make sure that they're not visible, and then you can just turn them on for each required elevation. And that's if you've got another solution to that, that would be great. Oops, and that's me done.
Hello, my name is Gabor. I'm working for BDP as a BIM coordinator. We had a bit of headache previously. We're working on a very large project, so we needed to split up the model. So we basically have a building model, and most of the other models are purely FF&E. To be honest, there's a couple of reasons why we've done it. One of it is the size, otherwise is some of users not use properly work sets. I'm pretty sure it's a common problem all around the industry, but so it's lots of other reasons why we've done it, but I just open it up. Our problem is actually we had the main building, and did I find my files here?
Up one level.
Up one level.
Sorry, one more.
One more. Oh yeah, cheers. So the problem is I'm pretty sure most of us schedule out data from linked files. So that's what we're doing. It does work, everything which is shared parameter in mostly in rooms. What you see here, we created a couple of like floor finishes or even activities for room data sheets output. But is the problem is here, what you're going to see is the grey out is a linked file. So I'm just going to open up in another one to see properly. So that's my FF&E. So it's basically the two things is linked together, vice versa. The issue is what you see in one Revit. So that's my FF&E. So you see I grayed out the main building itself. So all components is based on the FFM placed into the FF&E model. However, everything else is coming through, which is from the linked file, which is shared parameter and based in the rooms or any other components. However, the components is not identified where it's been located as soon as the rooms are linked. So, and this is a bit of headache, which how we manage this. I'm going to open up. So it's like if I create a floor finish, just so what you see is different type of floors. That's how it looks like on sheet, and I can schedule them out. So if I open this schedule, it's just actually scheduling out everything, whichever it's in the rooms or whichever I want it to show. If I go to the activities, it's the same things. It comes from the rooms, so it's all fine. But the problem is starting here. So when I started to schedule out from the link, so is this link button is ticked. So what you see is the components coming through where it's not identify its rooms, so where it is placed. And the same problem if I go to my other model, which is an FF&E. Also I have this, what you see here is the activity schedule is comes straight through from the linked file. But if I go to, even if I want to filter him, I can pick, later on I'll come in here, but let's see the equipment, it's all blank because it's the components not identified where it's been based. So it's a very headache. So if I go to created the same sheet here, the flow finish. So as you see, is the filters are working. However, the schedule is not working until I tell them to include that from the link file. So as soon as it comes, I can actually filter afterwards by room number and room names. But so it came as it was on the other model, so it's exactly this though as the other model. So it works fine unless I started to create a C sheet, which is normally based on, so activities is coming through from the link, but what you see here is the components are blank. So one way when we can come around this, we created also a design option here which we call rooms. So we actually duplicated all the rooms into this model. But however, it's because it's on the design option is mostly people is not seeing it, so it's avoid the problems they started to renumber or rename them. So actually it's because the room is placed here too, the schedule, we can make the schedules rather than using the link element, we can use this numbers schedule filtered by number, but have to pick the design option to rooms. As soon as it's rooms, it's pick up immediately all the components which is in the room 1 and nothing more than that. So it works fine. But the problem is as soon as you start to shuffle rooms around and renumbering rooms on the other models, so it's very difficult to follow it. It's have to keep an eye pretty much constantly if anything like so. It's bear in mind is that project is 400 rooms in it, so it's a bit difficult to actually keep an eye on every single rooms. So and the problem is if even if just a little changes happen in the rooms is the schedules are not picking up anymore because you have to type in where is it from as it's linked. So that was our solution on it at the moment, and that's how we approaching. But I'm just not really sure is how we can actually monitor one room to another and just make sure or how we can actually schedule out something which belongs to any linked room. So that's the big question here actually. If anyone has any previous experience how they come around, would be appreciated to know, to be honest. But so it's mostly fine when your plans are fixed, but it still keep changing as a hardcore project is changing until it's handover. So it's the next 4 years. It's going to be a big headache for us. Yeah. So there's a big question: is any other way to?
What type of family are you using for the FF&E?
There's another thing is because we used ADB to brief our scheme, and they are generic components, all of them. So it's not categorized, whichever is electrical fixtures or whichever is plumbing or whatever. It's so generic model is most of the components is based. I'd say most of them is in Revit based. Most of them some 2D CAD and linked into or nested into, and another part is 3D CADs. So it's not, you can't just go and simply change them because it's something this came from somewhere.
But you have a single FF&E family where you're nesting those other elements together, and then you place the whole family on the FF&E
Yeah.
project. When you click on the FF&Es,
They are
the entire thing. If you, are they grouped?
Yeah, they just grouped. We normally kept them grouped. Just make sure is you accidentally not delete out elements from the room. Is that's the only reason. So kind of identify the groups normally which room numbers belong to. So if accidentally you delete, if I accidentally delete that one, is the whole thing's gone. So you should pick up is you've done something wrong. And to be honest, is most of the people not picking up. So it's just weeks later. But you can find down in the groups and you can place them back. So it's, you lose a lot of annotation, but that's just a little pain. However, it's happening. So it's 20 of us working on at the same time. It's very difficult to manage them all at the same time. So it's just. But that's a bit of just a headache, to be honest. It's working, but it's not perfect, unfortunately. So we try to find something which is much more automatized and picking up changes itself rather than us manually.
Sorry again. And when you're trying to schedule,
If normally, so if
or is it the model group that you're?
well, it's just the group itself, but they individual elements, so they all individuals, families.
But on the FF&E schedule, we're
Yes.
trying to schedule those individually or by model group. I don't know.
No. It schedules out what's so it's filtered by its room number. So we're looking for something which is in that room, but because the room is linked, it's not picking up is there. However, it's picking up everything else. So if you want to schedule out floors or whatever, which is room parameter, room shared parameter, you can do it. So it's anything possible to schedule it out. However, it's not recognized actually where the room is placed when it's linked. Say again?
Case that one. Case that to sync link room, save all the room information to a link file, and just copy that into your.
The problem is those are workspeed ID numbers, the Revit-based ID numbers, and those ID numbers are not exist on the other model. Am I right? So you can't link back because that's not exist. Am I right? Yeah. So I'm using BIM links, but I never tried actually. But
It will create a new room. It won't take the old ID. It just creates a new room at that standard.
I think we'll talk about this during the solutions.
Yeah.
If that's okay.